to be executed perfect so we can get it out on the field and trust it. In fall camp, if you run a bad play once, you just go to the meeting room and fix it the next 6 days. But there's more urgency. And I don't know if I felt enough of that from the team, but what I do feel is an eagerness to get out there and a confidence in where they are and where they're going.
Scott, health-wise, how is the team going into this game?
A lot of credit to our training staff and our strength and conditioning staff. I look at an injury report every week, and we don't have a lot of guys on there. So we're going to be pretty close to full strength, minus a couple guys. I don't think Caden Peening's going to be ready, and obviously Swint's out for a while. But other than that, I think it's all hands on deck, and I think those guys have done a really good job keeping the guys healthy and training them the right way so that they're building up to peak at the right time.
In between preparing for Jacksonville State, did you get a chance to watch K-State and Iowa State over the weekend? And maybe, if you did, your first thoughts of the Big 12?
Yeah, I was impressed with both teams. Obviously, the conditions kind of affected the game in the first half, but really impressed with both defenses and how hard they played and how well they tackled.
Florida Live starts now.
Good afternoon to you and welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We have a lot to get to today. I want to go ahead and jump right in, let you know some of what you can expect coming up later in the show. A Sarasota child swept into a storm drain, an absolute tragedy. Fox 13's Nancy Gay is going to have the details on that coming up in our Tampa connection. We're also going to hear from a number of Florida leaders and disaster preparedness experts who say FEMA cuts are sabotaging safety as we get closer to the peak of hurricane season. So we are monitoring that as well. But we begin this afternoon with a standoff over the Pulse crosswalk. This is the rainbow crosswalk in Orlando that has been painted over 3 times now, just in a matter of days, by FDOT after they say the intersection was no longer in compliance. And this is the crosswalk right outside the Pulse Nightclub in Orlando. Joining us live now to talk about this is Brandon Wolf. He is not only a Pulse survivor, he is also the National Press Secretary for the Human Rights Campaign and joins us live now via Zoom from Washington, D.C. And Brandon, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks.
Brandon, I know this is a situation that you have been watching as well. Just kind of give me your initial thoughts to everything that has kind of transpired over the past few days.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that Ron DeSantis, in his crusade against LGBTQ plus people, has decided to take aim at what should be sacred ground. Just to put this all in context, the rainbow crosswalk outside of Pulse Nightclub was approved by Governor Rick Scott in 2017. It was there without issue for 8 years. Ron DeSantis himself visited the site in 2019 and didn't seem to have any issue with the rainbow crosswalk at the time. But now that rainbow crosswalks have become, yet another part of the right-wing war on LGBTQ plus people, add it to banned books and censored curriculums and dictating what kids can play, what after-school activities, or use what restrooms. Now that it's become part of that culture war, suddenly DeSantis and the administration have an issue with it. But the reason they came in overnight, under the cover of darkness, with no warning to the city, to remove this rainbow crosswalk is because they knew what the community response would be. You can't put a memorial up to the deadliest terror attack on U.S. soil since 9/11, let the community become attached to it for 8 years, and then rip it out from underneath them without expecting some backlash. That outrage, that backlash is exactly what the state is getting right now.
And I mentioned the crews who were out again overnight, repainting that for a 3rd time, and we know today there's a pretty staunch law enforcement presence out there at the site as well, and even threatening arrests if of people out there if they were to paint that crosswalk like we have seen in the past couple of days. What do you respond? How do you respond to that? How do you react to that?
I mean, are we kidding? Is this what Floridians want state resources to be used on? Let's put this in perspective as well. Yesterday, there were 8 law enforcement officers outside babysitting the Rainbow Crosswalk outside the Pulse Nightclub Memorial. 8 law enforcement officers. That is 8 times the size of the security force that was watching the front door of Pulse Nightclub the night that 49 people were murdered. When is the last time you called 911 and were responded to with 8 law enforcement officers to address a violent crime in your community? So the question for Floridians across the state is, do you really want to be a part of Ron DeSantis's culture war? How many taxpayer dollars are you willing to pour into people sitting on the hood of their car, literally watching paint dry in downtown Orlando before you stand up and fight back against this administration? You're seeing it on the streets of Orlando. You're seeing people, not just that crosswalk, but crosswalks, public private spaces all over the city, taking chalk and paint and turning them all rainbow. You're seeing people pushing back on the ground, but Floridians need to understand that it is their resources that are being deployed to sit on the sideline next to the Pulse Nightclub Memorial and police a crosswalk instead of doing any number of things that officers could be doing to help make people safer.
The state says this is over safety and that they're not just specifically targeting rainbow crosswalks, but other crosswalks as well. Do you buy that?
No, it's totally bogus. I mean, if we're going to talk about safety, there's ample evidence that rainbow crosswalks, that bright, colorful crosswalks actually reduce pedestrian hazards on roadways. But I also don't want to give in to the right-wing frame. They would love for us to be arguing about safety or consistency on the roadway and not drawing attention to the fact that they have now spent years attacking LGBTQ plus people their entire personalities. Ron DeSantis went from standing at the Pulse Nightclub Memorial in 2019, telling me to my face that he would always have our backs, to launching a years-long crusade against the community solely because he thought it would help him get elected president. That is why we're in this position, because these people are so obsessed with the idea of being powerful and influential. They're so obsessed with winning a culture war that they are willing to expend endless amounts of state resources, taxpayer dollars, going to war with LGBTQ plus people, going to war with artists in the community, so that they can, I don't know, own the libs or get clicks online.
You mentioned the pushback to this from the community, and we have seen a number of people kind of taking matters into their own hands and not just painting or chalking that crosswalk, but also putting up some rainbows on their own property just as a way to kind of show solidarity and support. What does that mean to kind of see that response to this action?
I've talked a lot in the last 8-9 years about how much I love Orlando, and that's the reason I love that community, because they show up for each other. In the wake of the Pulse nightclub shooting, the response was the same. People stood arm in arm. They held hands. They offered hugs in line at the grocery store. They put rainbows up all over the city, and they said with one collective voice that we would never let one hate-filled man steal our joy, that we would never let him win. The community is responding in exactly the same way right now. Again, you cannot be surprised if you're the state that you helped to put up a memorial, left it there for 8 years, and now people are angry that you've taken that away. But I think the backlash is also a response to this administration, to this governor. It is a response from a community that says, your hate does not represent us. This cruelty does not represent us, and so we're going to fight back in the only way we know how, which is to be more visibly, more proudly, more unapologetically ourselves, full of love.
What do you want to see happen from here? It does not seem like the state is going to back down from this. So what do you want to see happen?
Well, what I found interesting in the Department of Transportation's memo was that they claimed they are funding the Pulse nightclub memorial space, the permanent creation of that memorial. I'd be interested to hear if that's an announcement. Are they planning to fully fund the creation of that memorial? I'd love to get some more answers on that. What I would like to see is, one, that we do finish a permanent memorial in that space that is open to the public, that is respectful, that honors the people who were stolen and everyone who had their lives turned upside down. And I would like to see the people of Florida put new leadership in place that doesn't spend all of its time hyper obsessed with picking on terrorizing LGBTQ plus people, but is laser focused on solving actual problems for people. I'm not under the impression that we're going to win this battle over a crosswalk in the long term, but what we can do is use it as a moment to help people across the state understand what's at stake. That if it's going to happen in Orlando, at a memorial to, again, the deadliest terror attack on U.S. soil since 9/11, then it will absolutely happen in your community. These resources will absolutely be weaponized in your backyard, and it's time for people to take a stand against it.
Brandon Wolf, Pulse survivor and the National Press Secretary for Human Rights Campaign. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. All right. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Governor Ron DeSantis was in Tampa earlier today. He was accepting an award at the American Legion National Convention. This is going on in Tampa today. He accepted the James V. Day Good Guy Award and made some remarks at that convention as well, where he talked about sacrifice and service and the American experiment. Here is some of what the governor had to say during his speech accepting that award at the American Legion National Convention just a little bit ago.
About the natural disasters, and I will tell you, as a governor that's had to navigate those disaster responses post a number of hurricanes, the two things I know will be there for us: American Legion and Waffle House, and that seems to happen every time. Another thing I know is that, as having been active duty, stationed for a time at Naval Station Mayport, but also knowing that we've got a lot of great Navy bases. Of course, we have MacDill Air Force Base not too far from here. When you're active duty and you end up being able to establish a Florida residency, when you PCS to another state, a lot of people keep that Florida residency. It pays dividends. You also get a paycheck tax-free, which I know a lot of people like to do. Florida, we're proud of what we do for veterans, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But we are leading amongst all 50 states in building up to next year's commemoration of America's 250th anniversary. And if you look over recent years, you've seen a lot of cities and states tear down commemorations and statues of our founding fathers. And I just want to let you know, in Florida, we're not tearing them down. We're putting up new statues and new remembrances of the foundations of this country. So we have George Washington. We've acquired a George Washington that's now in the Florida Capitol. We have a number of counties that are named after founding fathers, and so we've already delivered a statue of Thomas Jefferson to Jefferson County. We're going to do the same for Franklin County and Hamilton County and Madison County and Monroe County. And you know, we'll even airdrop statues to the founding fathers to other places that may not have those namesakes, but we want to make sure that folks understand the significance and the importance of this. And part of what flows from that is the fact that we've put a strong emphasis on teaching our young kids about American civics. And I know the American Legion has been involved in giving scholarships for folks who participate in the oratory program. We in Florida now have the most robust speech and debate initiative for civics of any state in the United States. And that wasn't true when I became governor. We believe it's important that these folks, these kids, when they leave our school system, that they're not just blank slates, that they actually have a foundation in understanding what it means to be an American. Because no matter what vocation they pursue, no matter what field of additional study, if any, they pursue, and people will go and hopefully be productive in a wide variety of areas, the one common for everyone that we produce from our school system is that they, once they become adults, will be called upon to exercise the duties and responsibilities of being an American citizen. And that's meaningful. That's something that people should take seriously, and they should definitely have that solid philosophical foundation to know why it is that so many people have been willing to fight and even die for this country. I'm honored to receive this award. James Day, was a good guy, a great American, not only service in World War II, but for all he did with the American Legion. And as a kid who grew up right across the bay here, and whose Little League team went all the way to the Little League World Series, who kept playing baseball all the way through college and was the captain of the Yale varsity baseball team, and certainly would have kept playing. You know, when I got elected to the Congress for the first time, I was there for 3 terms. I've recovered from that experience, don't worry. Had I drank in the Kool-Aid, I would not have been able to be a successful governor. People would ask me, they find out about my baseball background, you know, that we do a congressional baseball game and they'd see me out there, they'd be like, oh, you know, why didn't you play, you know, in the major leagues? I was like, if I was good enough to play in the major leagues, you think I'd honestly be in the U.S. Congress, for Pete's sake? No way. So as somebody that's been involved in baseball, I have noted that there have been some really big, important baseball figures who have received this award. Johnny Bench, the great catcher, maybe the greatest catcher of all time. Bob Uecker, the legendary announcer, and even former commissioner of MLB, Bud Selig. And so that's very, very meaningful to me. But as important as baseball is to me, I looked at some of the other recipients, and the one that I saw that is star power, cannot be matched, is Dolly Parton was receiving of this. So that's my claim to fame, that I got the same award that Dolly Parton wants to get. We are the #1 state for veterans, and I don't say that lightly because I know there's other states that do a good job. Quite frankly, we have some states that do a poor job, and I think that that's a poor reflection of the leadership in those states. But across the board, we have taken strong, decisive action to serve the more than 1.5 million veterans who choose Florida as their home. And that's not just limited to the veteran themselves. We have done a lot for spouses of not only active duty, but veterans, the children of veterans, and that ranges from everything from school choice to programs within the schools to assist veterans and their kids.
Governor Ron DeSantis speaking after accepting an award at a convention, the National Convention of the American Legion, going on in Tampa. Sounds like he's in pretty good company with that award as well, as he was just talking about there. His full speech was about 30 minutes long. You can find that full thing on Twitter. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is time now for our Tampa connection, and for that we go to Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay, joining us live from the Fox 13 newsroom. And Nancy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Garrett. Today we're going to start in St. Petersburg, where St. Pete Mayor Ken Welch is saying that the city is going to be strategic and not reactionary when it comes to the city's murals. Those are the street murals being painted over. That being said, he is asking St. Pete residents to go out to those murals before they are painted over. He wants residents to take photos, share them with their friends and family, share them on social media, and he's asking people to use the hashtags #WeAreSt. Our streets, our voices, as well as can't erase St. Pete. Now, Mayor Welch, he did stress that residents need to obey the law and be smart about how they handle things. Now, this all stems from last week. The city asked FDOT to keep 5 murals, including one for Pride, one for USF, and one for Black History. The city learned late Friday afternoon that that request was denied and those murals will be painted over. Now, this all stems from after Governor DeSantis signed Senate Bill 1662 into law in June. FDOT ordered cities and counties to identify and potentially remove artwork on roadways that may violate state traffic control guidelines. Now, state officials have said non-standard surface markings can cause distractions or misunderstandings on the road and jeopardize driver as well as pedestrian safety. However, City of St. Pete officials, they did a three-year before and after crash analysis on the intersection at Central Avenue where the first mural was installed. Now, in the city's letter to FDOT last week, it said that crash data showed that certain street murals on its roadways aren't a safety risk. Instead, they actually said increased safety and they had fewer crashes. Now, during this morning's press conference, Mayor Welch called the ban on the city's street murals politically inspired state preemption. He said the city did everything it could to push back, but FDOT threatened penalties that would have cost the city millions of dollars in state funding. Welch added that he would not risk those essential investments in a fight that he doesn't believe he can win, but he did say that this is not the end.
We will build back stronger, and we will create new, even more powerful expressions of who we are. Expressions that cannot be erased. The state can remove the paint from our streets. They can remove those symbols, but they cannot bind the spirit of the city of St. Petersburg or silence our voice.
Now, just a little while ago, right before we came on air, we learned that the city of Tampa will be removing its Back the Blue mural that is in front of the Tampa Police Department. The city told us that it is part of the roughly 40 murals within the city of Tampa that the Department of Transportation said needs to be removed. As of right now, we don't have a time frame on when that mural will be removed, and we also don't have a time frame as far as when these murals in St. Petersburg will be removed. Garrett?
Obviously a big conversation. You know, we've talked about it a lot of you know, what's happening here in Orlando with the crosswalk outside Pulse, but obviously a big story there in St. Pete and in Tampa as well. Nancy, story number 2 here. This is just heartbreaking, what happened in Sarasota.
Yes, that's right. A child was hospitalized yesterday around 6:15 because she was swept into a storm drain. Now, this happened on Bahia Vista Street in Sarasota. Investigators say that this girl was playing with other children near a culvert when a water main broke and she was pulled into the drainage system by that strong water flow. Now, as of right now, we do not know how old this girl is, but we were told that she was pulled about 100 yards into that drain. Right after closing the roadway, the eastbound lanes of Bahia Vista Street actually collapsed into a large pool of water that's approximately 4 feet deep at Cornish Court and Arcadia Avenue. Now, county workers are working to rectify this situation, and that roadway has reopened to 1 lane east and 1 lane westbound. Now, according to the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, that water main break was due in part to floodwater as well as inclement weather. That child, she was taken to Sarasota Memorial Hospital yesterday, and at last check, which was a few hours ago, she was still in critical condition. Garrett?
Gosh, that's just terrible. I can only imagine how frightening of a situation that would be as well.
Yeah, it must have been absolutely terrifying. She was just out, like I mentioned, out there playing with a group of other children when this water main broke and this rush of water just came and swept her about 100 yards into that storm drain. Again, she is in critical condition right now. Hopefully, you know, she does have an opportunity to recover. She is down at Sarasota Memorial Hospital. But again, she was with several other children, so this could have been much worse. Several of those children could have been swept away as well.
Yeah. And our final story in the Tampa Connection today, this is an interesting story out of Pinellas Park with allegations of a woman performing dental work without a license.
Yes, this is definitely an unusual story, and it's one that has been getting a lot of attention for us online. Investigators say Emily Martinez advertised on social media as a veneer technician, and she promised smile makeovers. But her clients, they were left with infections, damaged teeth, and large bills to fix the damage that she caused. Sometimes she would even use crazy glue to attach those fake veneers. Now, clients would meet Martinez at the Tap In Beauty Bar in Pinellas Park for the procedures. Investigators said that she offered veneer treatments for a fraction of what they would cost at a licensed dental office. So we're told that real veneers cost anywhere between $900 and $1,500 per tooth. But police said Martinez, she charged one victim $2,500 for their entire mouth. Martinez advertised a 24 veneer smile makeover for $3,000 with a promise that it would last 5 to 7 years. Now, a lot of her clients didn't know that she did not have a license, and they actually confronted her about it. And 2 separate customers reported Martinez to Pinellas Park Police after experiencing pain, infections, and complications several days or several weeks after those procedures. Some people, they did have to undergo emergency dental work in order to save their teeth. And this is not the first time Martinez has faced charges for this crime. Records show she was arrested in March on a warrant out of Hillsborough County for unlicensed dental work. She is due in court on those charges on August 29th. And despite that arrest, police said she continued to operate in Pinellas County. Victims in the Pinellas Park cases came forward in the months of June and July. Authorities are now investigating claims that her services went beyond veneers. Detectives are investigating claims that she may have also pulled teeth and even tried to do dental work on children. Investigators believe Martinez may have been performing unlicensed dental work at least since January, and they encourage anyone who may have received treatment from her to contact the Pinellas Park Police Department. They said she has changed her name and operated under different business names at various points. So if she looks familiar to you and you did have dental work by Emily Martinez or somebody who looks like her, again, contact law enforcement. And there is a way to check to see if your dentist is licensed. That can happen on the Florida Department of Health's website. Just log on there, type in their name, and make sure that you are seeing a licensed person when you are having dental work done. Garrett?
It's not a bad idea to check. I mean, we've heard several similar cases like this in recent weeks, so it certainly doesn't hurt to look them up.
Yeah, it's definitely advised to look them up because, as you mentioned, there have been several instances recently, especially people getting cosmetic procedures like Botox in a backyard. I remember one woman in Florida was doing Botox out of a shed in her backyard. So it's definitely important anytime you're undergoing any type of medical procedure to make sure they're licensed.
Yeah, good advice. Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us for our Tampa Connection.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon. Florida leaders and disaster preparedness experts say that cuts to FEMA and some other changes are sabotaging our safety as we get closer to peak hurricane season. They're specifically calling out President Donald Trump and also criticizing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as the hurricane season moves on. They're calling out FEMA staffing cuts and program cancellations. And when it comes to DeSantis and the state level, they are saying, criticizing him for spending FEMA money on Alligator Alcatraz. We heard in this virtual news conference from a number of officials with ties here to Florida, including a state representative, Florida state air surgeon, a former Florida state senator. The first speaker at this event was the former administrator of FEMA, Deanne Criswell, and she talked about a number of things, including also alluding to this 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina coming up on Friday, and worrying that these cuts to FEMA could roll back many of the advances that have been made since then. And this is timely because not only are we nearing that anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, but also today, more than 180 current and former FEMA employees published a letter warning that these cuts risk a Katrina-like catastrophe. Here is Deanne Criswell speaking in that virtual news conference just a little bit ago.
I think this call and the timing of this call are really important, as Friday is going to mark 20 years since Hurricane Katrina wreaked havoc along the Gulf Coast. Many of us probably still remember those images that we saw of the people stranded in Louisiana, but we also can't forget all of the tragedy that happened in Mississippi and Alabama and other states as well. And I would say since then, in the 20 years following Hurricane Katrina's devastation, the federal government has really strived to improve their ability to support people before, during, and after disasters. And that's not just FEMA, but FEMA has made a lot of changes, but other parts of the federal government as well. One of the things that we saw during Hurricane Katrina was a lack of a coordinated response. And one of FEMA's primary roles is to make sure that they are coordinating the entire federal government to make sure that we are meeting people's needs, meeting them where they are at, and that we have a coordinated response going forward, and we don't have this ad hoc approach that we saw during Hurricane Katrina. One of the biggest drivers in being able to help us do that was the Post-Katrina Emergency Management Reform Act. There were a couple of key provisions within that act that I just want to highlight for everybody here today. The first one was making the FEMA administrator, two things for the FEMA administrator. One was they had to have at least 5 years of executive emergency management experience. What we saw during Katrina was somebody who didn't have that level of experience, and so they didn't have the knowledge and understanding to be able to anticipate what the potential needs were going to be. And the second key thing for the FEMA administrator was elevating it to a Senate-confirmed political appointee, which also gave it direct access to the President of the United States, taking away layers of bureaucracy so FEMA could become a more agile agency. Instead of being reactive, they now had the tools and the resources to be proactive. What we have seen over the last 20 years as we've continued to improve is watching FEMA pre-deploy resources and assets into communities. If we see a hurricane coming before it makes landfall, or if there's a limited notice event, immediately following, not having to wait, for permission to move these resources, but having them in place. You still need that permission from state governors to be able to employ them, but you don't want to lose time and you want to have them in place. And these are a lot of the advances that have been made in the 20 years since Hurricane Katrina. But I fear that we're forgetting these lessons. And the further we get away from these catastrophic events, the more we forget how significant and how impactful they were. We now see an agency that doesn't have a Senate-confirmed position, and we have an acting administrator that doesn't have any emergency management experience. We see additional layers of administrative burden that have been put in place that are slowing down the ability to move those resources before they've been asked for, to make sure that we're not losing time and we get resources in place to help those communities that have had such a big impact. Now, I know that change is needed, and I'm grateful for the FEMA Review Council and hopeful that they're going to bring some solid recommendations on how the entire federal government, not just FEMA, can work better together to help support communities before, during, and after disasters. But we can't go back to the way it was 20 years ago. We have to be able to continue to improve, and we have to be able to do this through thoughtful conversations with our customers at the table and having those really frank discussions about what is it that needs to change, needs to improve, and not just creating a problem to fit a solution that might have already been pre-identified. And so I'm hopeful and grateful that the Review Council is starting to have those conversations. I look forward to seeing what those recommendations are going to be. And again, I hope they remember the lessons that we learned from Hurricane Katrina, and they're seeing some of the drastic changes that are happening right now that are actually putting, I think, our nation at more risk and more vulnerability to the impacts from these severe weather events. And with that, I'll wait for questions.
Thank you, Administrator Criswell. Next, we will go to Florida State Rep Angie Nixon.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you all for having me today. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you all today. Look, I've said it before and I will say it again. America, you are in danger, girl. We're only 7 months into this new Trump's term, this Trump second term, and our lives have already really been made extremely difficult. He said he's going to bring our costs down, but they keep rising, from putting a roof over our heads to getting dinner on our table. And so in Florida, actually, many of us will lose health care, unable to go to the doctor and seek treatment when we need it the most. Not only that, but $500 million went to the first of many internment camps here in the state of Florida. Families are being torn apart so that wealthy Republican donors can get their payday, all on the backs of taxpayers like each and every one of us. And now we're already at a breaking point where one thing gone wrong can actually mean the difference between making it through the day and losing everything with nowhere to go. Republicans in Washington and in Tallahassee are making sure that even in times of a natural disaster, when a government is supposed to be there for us, we'll be left to fend for ourselves and left holding the bag. Right now, we are witnessing FEMA money being cut, FEMA assistance slashed, cut by the Trump administration, which that aid would go to aid for Florida families. And we really need that during hurricane season. We're in the middle of hurricane season. And it's actually going to leave communities left to fend for ourselves when disaster is striking. Not only that, but there are going to be critical protection programs that are going to be eliminated, with no more federal funding for flood mitigation or hurricane resistance infrastructure or community resilience projects. Not only that, but we are dealing with the governor who has continually vetoed millions and millions and millions of appropriations for things like flood barriers, as well as emergency facilities and stormwater improvements, specifically in areas where there are low-income people or where they're represented by the other party. And now we just heard today in the news that over 180 FEMA employees are issuing a letter stating that they are concerned about the inadequate dealings of the folks who are in charge, and they are worried that FEMA is not prepared to handle any type of massive storms similar to what took place in regards to Katrina.
State Representative Angie Nixon talking about that letter that we referred to earlier as well. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we still have more to come, so keep it here on Fox Local and on YouTube. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Continuing to track the fallout from this deadly crash in St. Lucie County that killed 3 people when a driver who was believed to have been in the country illegally tried to make an illegal U-turn on the Florida Turnpike and caused that crash that, again, killed 3 people. He is now back in custody here in Florida to face these several charges that he faces in connection with that deadly crash. And there have been a lot of questions about how he had a commercial driver's license to begin with. A lot of criticism of the state of California and their policies from the Attorney General and from the governor here in Florida. And today, the Attorney General, James Othmeyer, held a news conference along with the Agriculture Commissioner. They were in Live Oak at an inspection station off I-10, and they were talking about a new initiative where they are going to increase immigration enforcement and inspections at these state ag inspection sites, like off the interstate there. They also talked about the recent arrest of another illegal immigrant driving a commercial vehicle, this one with a New Jersey driver's license. We also heard from the Attorney General talking about him asking the U.S. Department of Transportation to revoke CDL programs and funding from states like California and the state of Washington. Here is some of what James Othmeyer had to say, and also what Wilton Simpson, the Agriculture Commissioner, had to say at that news conference earlier today in Live Oak.
Last week, 3 people died after an illegal immigrant made an illegal U-turn on Florida's Turnpike. This accident happened because of Joe Biden's failed border policies and immigration policies. Joe Biden allowed over 10 million illegals into our country. Many of them were terrorists, drug smugglers, rapists, and murderers. Thankfully, President Trump was sworn in January, and he has completely closed down our border and has had the largest criminal illegal deportation in the history of the country. In support of President Trump's policies, Florida has been a leader in the deportation of criminal illegal immigrants. The Department of Agriculture Ag Law, led by Colonel Adams, is a force multiplier in this effort. All of our sworn officers are 287G certified. We achieved that in early July. Ag Law is not just looking for agricultural bugs, but we're also looking for drugs and thugs. We have 23 interdiction stations, and thanks to the legislature, we are adding a new station at 231. In addition, we are putting in pullover lanes along our northern border. I want to thank DOT for their efforts in helping us get these areas established. In the next few months, we will also have advanced technology equipment, x-ray machines that will actually x-ray these trucks as they pull through interdiction stations. This will be another major tool in the effort to fight these types of crimes. And I also want to thank Ag Law and the legislature for doing such an amazing job of pulling these things together. Ag Law has arrested or turned over to federal immigration partners nearly 150 illegal immigrants in the last year. As part of the multi-agency saw palmetto berry theft operation, Ag Law recently arrested 2 suspects and referred 17 individuals to Customs and Border Patrol. In March, one of our Ag Law special agents, who was on a United States Marshal Task Force, was assigned to a Russian fugitive who had an active warrant for escaping from a prison in Santa Rosa County, stemming from an underage sex trafficking scheme out of Minnesota. Our special agent was able to locate him under a crawl space of a relative's house and transport him to jail where he belongs. In June this year, Ag Law with federal and local partners dismantled a major skimming operation in Hernando County, arresting 3 suspects, seizing 354 counterfeit cards, 17 skimmers, 150 plus storage devices, illegal fuel tanks, animal fighting equipment, and over $47,000 in cash. These are just a few of Ag Law's accomplishments. Today, we are putting people who break the law on notice. If you come through these interstations and you're an illegal or breaking the law, you will be handed over to our local or federal partners. If you are driving a commercial vehicle and you are not proficient in English, we will comply with the President's executive order. Thank you for giving us a few minutes to highlight the good work of Ag Law and our law enforcement partners to combat criminal activity of illegal immigration. This is a tremendous effort, starting with President Trump, Governor DeSantis, and our sheriffs and local law enforcement. Ag Law is proud to be a force multiplier on these national security and immigration issues. At this time, I'd like to turn the podium over to Attorney General James Uthmeyer.
Thank you, Commissioner. Obviously, most people in Florida are now aware of the serious tragedy that happened down in southeast Florida. Someone that never should have been given a driver's license, much less a CDL license to drive larger commercial vehicles, engaged in reckless behavior that took 3 lives. Last night, we saw another example. We were able to arrest an individual who was in the country illegally, who was driving a commercial vehicle in Bay County. The individual, Roberto Carlos Vergara, has been arrested and is now under an ICE hold. There's no telling how many illegal aliens are in this country driving large commercial vehicles and putting American families in a safety risk every single day. And that's why efforts like what Agriculture Law Enforcement Commissioner Simpson are doing are so important. We have got to protect our American citizens from the dangers of the open border crisis and illegal aliens that may be engaging in behavior that injures people. So we've made this arrest last night. We're continuing to crack down and interdict others that may have gotten into Florida from sanctuary states. As a reminder, in Florida, you cannot obtain a driver's license if you are an illegal alien. And if you have obtained a driver's license from one of these sanctuary states like California, Washington, or in the case of the driver from last night, New Jersey, those licenses are no good here. So I commend Commissioner Simpson and the Department of Agriculture for surging interdictions at these checkpoints. The legislature gave them over 85 new law enforcement positions in the special session earlier this year. Their forces, when full, will total almost 300, and many of these law enforcement officers will be stationed at the interdiction checkpoints coming into the state of Florida. So I commend them for conducting inspections to interdict illegal aliens, to ensure that people driving with these CDL licenses are equipped to do so, for making sure that people who do not speak English, do not have these licenses, and are not driving large commercial vehicles, putting American families on the road at risk. So thank you, Commissioner, for the work of your team. I'll conclude by saying that our office is calling on the federal government, the United States Department of Transportation, to revoke CDL programs in California and Washington if the federal government identifies systematic abuse of these programs and allowing illegal aliens, perhaps even encouraging illegal aliens to obtain these licenses. And if other states like New Jersey and others are engaging in similar practice, then those programs should be revoked as well, and any funding tied to it should also be revoked. Thank God we've got a president that is restoring law and order, that has secured the border, and that has brought back American sovereignty. This is saving lives, this is protecting our people, and going forward, we're going to help him deliver on his promises. Here in Florida, we're leading the way. We're going to continue to interdict as many people as possible. I know several hundred illegal aliens were detained last week in state law enforcement efforts. And we'll continue to get them to Alligator Alcatraz or other places, and we will combat in court activist judges that want to shut down these facilities. I'll conclude by saying this. When it comes to fighting for President Trump, there's no state like Florida, and there's no leadership team like Governor DeSantis and our cabinet.
We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon. It was a late night, but a big night for the Tampa Bay Rays. Delayed several hours by rain, but it was worth it because not only did the Rays end up winning the weekend series against the St. Louis Cardinals, star third baseman Junior Caminero also hit a grand slam for his 37th home run of the year. That actually ties him with Albert Pujols for the record for a Dominican-born player in their 21-year-old season. And it gets bigger than that for Caminero, who announced yesterday that he and his wife are expecting a baby girl named Valentina due in November. Here's what Caminero had to say after last night's game.
Very happy. It's a very good thing. I'm very excited. The work that I've been putting in, you guys, are seeing all the work that I put in, and every time I come talk to you guys, I talk about that, and I'm very proud of that. Excited to be in me accompanying him, and he helped me a lot when he was my manager in the DR, so I'm very excited about it.
You had a lot of hard contact today in your first two at-bats. You had a ground out 112 miles an hour, line out 113 miles an hour. And were you ever frustrated when you make that kind of hard contact and you don't get anything out of it?
No. Yo controlo lo que puedo controlar.
No, I was fine. I knew that I had hit the ball hard, but I can control what I can control. I was just thanking God for giving me the strength to be able to hit the ball that hard, and I was just happy with the results.
When you played for Albert this winter, did you guys talk at all about what you might do? I mean, whether you might hit 30 homers or 35 homers or 40 homers or 37 homers. I mean, did you him discuss that at all? How much you might be able to do this year?
No me habló de jonrones, me habló fue de la pro.
No, we didn't speak about homers. We spoke more about the approach that I have to have when I go to the plate. In certain situations, he told me that the game is going to speak to me, and that's what we spoke about, but nothing about home runs or anything like that.
Did you change your walk-up song?
Yes.
Is there a reason why?
Porque ayer supe que voy a tener una hija y puse baby girl.
So I found out that I was going to have a girl yesterday, so that's why I changed my song. So I dedicated that song to her. I feel very proud. I'm very proud on that right now. And that's why I changed the song.
What's the new song? What's the name?
¿Cómo se llama la canción nueva?
Nokia de Drake.
Nokia from Drake.
Do you have a new home run number in mind now? Are you going 40, 45, 50? I mean,
Yo solo vivo el momento.
I just live the moment.
What a day for Junior Caminero, and big weekend for the Tampa Bay Rays. They are winning that series against the Cardinals. But congratulations to Junior Caminero and his wife Francesca, expecting that baby girl named Valentina, again due in November. Well, thanks for joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and we appreciate you joining us every day here on Fox Local and on YouTube as we track the latest news. That's going to wrap up our coverage for now, but we will see you tomorrow. So keep it here on Fox Local as your streaming continues.